Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am here with another trope recommendation video. Today I want to go over some more enemies to lovers romance recs with you. Obviously this is one of the most popular tropes, so there is a ton out there, and I have a ton on my list. But I do have, I think, about like 10 books that I haven't talked about in my previous video to go over with you. So let's go ahead and dive into some enemies to lovers recs. Okay, guys, so with enemies to lovers, we all know it's one of the most popular tropes out there. I think books are kind of over marketed as enemies to lovers. That's just a side mini rant for another day. I won't go into here, but I do think that a lot of things are labeled enemies to lovers that might be a slight dislike to lovers, just because we all like just gravitate towards an enemies to lovers book, and so they've kind of marketed a lot like that. But anyways, I said I wasn't going to go into it. That's another time. Maybe I'll do a video of mini rants that I have about certain things in the book community. But I love a good enemies to lovers romance, and so I wanted to give you guys some more books. I mean, obviously I have a ton on my list, but I don't think I've done an enemies to lovers video for like over a year. Again, I've been really bad about getting you guys trope recommendation videos with doing all my vlogs and weekly wrap-ups and other things. Like I kind of just with work I've slacked off on it, and I need to do better. So I'm trying, you guys. The previous trope rec I did was actually friends to lovers, so I thought we'll do the flip side and give you some fun, good enemies to lovers romances. I honestly just read one that was a brand new release that I absolutely loved, so this gives me another opportunity to gush about that one. But let's go ahead and dive in. If you are new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. I hope that you subscribe. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment, like, check out my channel, see if it's something that you enjoy. I do weekly wrap-ups, monthly wrap-ups. You know, I do lots of vlogging, and I'm trying to do more trope recommendation videos. So let's go ahead and dive into my list. So I wanted to start off with one of the books that actually got me into like reading romance again. It was like the beginning of my romance journey, and that is Bully by Penelope Douglas. I'm so shocked I don't have this book because I read it a couple times, and it's kind of like one of my OG bully romances, obviously. But I wanted to bring this up here because I think it is the perfect like enemies to lovers. It does have a lot of bullying vibes in it, but the enemies to lovers vibe is strong in this one. So in this one we have Jared and Tate, and this is actually also like a childhood friends to enemies to lovers type of situation, because Jared and Tate grew up next door to each other and they were best friends. Like they were so close. And all of a sudden, I don't know if it was like freshman year or around that age, when they started to go to school, Jared started to bully Tate and treat her like, and I mean bully, it's like bad bullying. He really ridiculed her, picked on her in school, made her life a living hell, and she doesn't understand what happened because they were so close. They were best friends. I mean, they had like this tree in between their houses, and they would both like climb out and hang out on the tree together. They would sneak in each other's rooms. They were best friends. And something happened in Jared's life that made him take a turn on her, and it's not really a fair turn. Tate has done nothing wrong, but it's all in Jared's head and how he's feeling and stuff that went on in his home life, which will be revealed. I'm not going to say it here, but he basically turns on Tate and hates her, and he makes her life hell. And so she ends up going abroad to school for I think a year. And she's coming back for her senior year, and she's a new woman. She's like, I'm not taking this shit anymore. And she is not going to let Jared bully her. She's not going to let him terrorize her. He lives next door to her, throws these huge parties. She goes over there and like shuts down his music. They get into it. So these two are big enemies through the first half of this book, to the point even where he like starts to like flirt and actively like kind of date her best friend. And that is like the biggest betrayal to Tate. Like that was one of the hardest parts I had in this book, was with the friend, because how could you do that to your friend? Date her bully? But things are going to come to a head when they finally clash and they finally like go there with each other and talk things out and figure out why he was hating her. And I mean, they have so many of these like emotional, you know, connections and feels for each other that it's gonna get intense. So I really loved this one. I know some people don't really love it. It does have a lot of bullying. So if you're not into bully romance, this might not be the one for you. But this did kind of get me back into the swing of like reading romances again. I read a lot of bully romance when I first read this. So it's a great enemies to lovers option for you. Okay, so the next one I have is actually like one of my recent faves. This was one of my top 10 books of 2024. And that is Shattered Dreams by Natasha Madison. So this was just, it shocked me because I actually got the ARC for this book last year. I had never read Natasha Madison, and I kind of looked, and she has a pretty extensive backlist. So it's something I really want to look into her backlist and look at her other books, because this one was so angsty. It was so emotional. It just gave me everything that it made me put me through the ringer. And so I absolutely love this. This ended up being a 6-star read for me. I think it's in the top 5. I know it's in the top 10 for sure of my books from 2024. So if you do want my list of my top books from 2024, I will link that down below for you. But in this, we have Charlie and Autumn. And it starts off right off the bat with some pretty heavy content, because they were a part of like three couples that end up going out. They would go out together on the weekends. They kind of would go out and at this campfire, hang out, drink, have a good time. And Charlie was dating Autumn's best friend. Autumn was with her boyfriend, and then there's another couple. And what ends up happening is a bad accident happens where Autumn's boyfriend, who was driving, dies. And then so does Charlie's girlfriend, who is Autumn's best friend. Now, why this is enemies to lovers is because Charlie blames Autumn for this accident. Things are revealed about, like, you know, her boyfriend who was driving and he was under the influence. And so like he blames her for letting him drive and all this stuff that goes on. There's a lot more to it than that, but I don't want to go too deep into it and give things away. But he blamed her, and the town ended up blaming and kind of bullying her and attacking her family, because her boyfriend was from one of the most powerful families in the town. And just there's a lot of fallout after the accident. So Autumn basically kind of picked up and moved out of this small town. But she is back. I think it's 8 years later. I can't remember. But she's back because her dad is sick. And his business is like falling apart, because that family, they have like this whiskey kind of place and bar and everything, and it's really in the red and it's in a bad place. And she had no idea, but when she comes home to help out with her dad, she realizes what a state this is, because they've kind of like blacklisted them. And so she's kind of taking it under to try and build back up the business. But when Charlie finds out that she's here, he is livid. He keeps running into her, and he is not nice about it. He hates her. He has been basically suffering for all this time, never moved on. Was in a very deep depression. For a while, he was heavily drinking, because his girlfriend was basically the love of his life. He planned on marrying her, all of that. And so he ends up going a couple of times to confront Autumn, and they end up hate banging each other. Like, it is intense. It was hot. And so he keeps being drawn to her, and they keep kind of like hooking up, but it's pretty angry fucking basically. But when he finds out like what more there is to the story about what happened with that accident, about Autumn's situation, he feels like shit, and he does a really big grovel and really wants to make it up to her. So this one, they do start off very enemies, really hating each other, because Autumn's tired of being blamed for everything. and all of that. So this is very angsty, it's emotional, but it's the first book in the Shattered series, and the other 2 books have been amazing too. So I definitely recommend this series if you want to pick it up. If you haven't tried Natasha Madison, I've really, really loved it. Okay, so the next book I want to bring up is Waking Olivia. So Waking Olivia is by Elizabeth O'Rourke, and I haven't read this for a really long time, so bear with me. I'm trying to give you the best information I can, but I believe it was Will. Let me double check. Yeah, Will and Olivia, obviously. And this is has a lot of triggers in it too, so just be aware, but it's emotional, and it was a lot deeper than I was expecting this book to be. Olivia is in a really bad place. She just got kicked out of like a D1 school. She's a very talented cross-country runner. And she got into some legal trouble, got little anger issues. She attacked a guy with like a bat type of situation, so she got kicked out. And now she's kind of stuck to go to this other school that wasn't like at the same level, but she really needs to go to school. And she's going to be on the cross-country team. Now, Will is an assistant coach on this team, and he wants nothing to do with her. She thought that she was going to be training under like the coach. He's the assistant coach, but she finds out it's just going to be with him. And she's definitely not happy about that. She's very cut off, very secluded, very alone. And let me just tell you, she has a lot of trauma, and it's a deep trauma. I'm not going to tell you what it is because you need to reveal that by reading the book. But this trauma is affecting her long term because she has these anger issues, these episodes. She's pretty wrung out, and Will sees this as like a loose cannon, and he doesn't want to deal with her. And what ends up happening is Olivia is actually running in her sleep. So she sleep runs, dealing with stress, dealing with her PTSD from her trauma. And I mean, she'll be running like barefoot sometimes and like barely their outfits for like 6 miles or whatever in the middle of the night. And then she'll have to like hitchhike home and be putting herself in these really dangerous situations. But not only that, this happens a lot of times before her meets. Like, she's literally the best runner on the team. But during the meets, she's really tired. She's run down. And so Will keeps seeing this, and he's irritated, and they kind of are constantly clashing about it. Eventually, he's going to find out what the reason, why she is tired and all this stuff is going on. And that's where it gets really beautiful, because Will is a really amazing guy, and he is in a relationship. So I will warn you, there is other woman drama in this. There's no cheating. But he is in a relationship for the first half of this book, so some people may not like that. But once he realizes what's going on with Olivia, he really steps up to help, has his like mom help out. He's really steps in to try and help her deal with her sleep running, and they just form this amazing connection. She gets this found family. So it is really beautiful. It's pretty angsty. It's a very slow burn. But they do start off at odds and kind of enemies, because he just thinks she's fucking off and she's a mess, and he doesn't want her a part of their team. But there's so much more going on with Olivia. So once you realize that and you read it, it's devastating. And so I really loved this book. I think it was fantastic. And I highly recommend it. Okay, so the next one that I want to bring up is kind of a historical. So I honestly will probably bring this up in another video, because I was planning, when I was putting this list together, I realized I had some really good historical enemies to lovers, but I decided not to add those in this video because I kind of want to make another video just historical romance enemies to lovers. So this might come up again in that one, because it's technically historical. But it is a dark historical romance. So I have Sea of Ruin by Pam Godwin. Anytime I have to show off my beautiful cover of this, I will. This is one of my favorite books of all time. Pam Godwin is one of my favorite dark romance authors. She's my queen. So I will bring this up a ton more times, I'm sure. But this does start off with a really big enemies to lovers situation. In this, we have Bennett. This is a pirate romance, and we have a female pirate. And Bennett is such an amazing heroine. She's one of my strongest heroines, feisty. She goes through freaking hell in this book, and she just blows me away. Pam Godwin writes really strong heroines that are multifaceted and just like so much more to their character that I just love. So Bennett is a female pirate, and she is basically kind of like been on the run from her husband priest for a couple years, I believe, because she thinks that he cheated on her, which kind of maybe she found a letter from one of his lovers, and so she said F that and freaking left him. And he's been kind of trying to chase her down and hunt her down and get her back. So he does finally catch up to her, and she ends up holding him in her ship, and they're kind of having their confrontation and everything. But what ends up happening is, Lord Ashley Cutler, who is actually a pirate hunter, he is chasing her down as well. And so they're both on her ship at that time, and they are not going to be able to get away from him. So she decides to offer herself up so that she can save her crew, and also so Priest could get away with her crew. And so she ends up getting taken by Ashley Cutler. His plan is to take her to London to be hanged, and she's going to do whatever she can not to make that happen. So her and Ashley Cutler really butt heads in this. They are enemies. But she's going to use her wiles. She's going to use her body, her whatever she has to do to get him to not kill her, to take her there. So she is... At first, he like literally throws her in with the other prisoners and like the other pirates and shit. And so she's like almost raped. And so he ends up taking her to his room. And so she stays there with him. Now, while they're really attracted to each other, he is her enemy. She's his enemy. And it is a complex dynamic. So, and while this is happening, Priest is trying to find his wife and get her back. Now, I will kind of give a spoiler here a little bit. I think if you've heard of this book, you already know, but this is an MMF, so you will discover things about Priest and Ashley Cutler and their history, and then how that ties in with Bennett. But this was so amazing. Like, I literally cried for the prologue, the introduction of this book. It was so dark, so I'm not going to bring up all the triggers here, but you can definitely go check your triggers before you read this, because there is SA on page, and it's pretty violent and hard to read, and that's just one of the triggers. So this is definitely a dark romance, so just be prepared before you go pick this one up. But if you think you can handle that, I highly recommend it, because it's one of my all-time favorite books. It's beautiful. I love it. I love Pam Godwin, and I will never stop recommending her. Okay, so another one that I want to bring up is actually Rina Kent, and I think there's actually a couple Rina Kents on this list, because she definitely likes to write enemies to lovers. But this one was one of my favorites, and this is Empire of Lust. I believe this is, let me double check. It's the fourth book, the final book in the Empire series, and it was my favorite one in that series. Sorry, I have my notes over here, so I might be going to the side. But this is between Kingsley and Aspen, and they have a very complicated history. They have been enemies for many years, and they happen to work together. So they are both lawyers and partners in this law firm. Kingsley's like the head guy, but Aspen is one of the partners, and she is such a strong badass. She's worked her way up from like nothing to be where she is, so she's very career driven, and her and Kingsley hate each other. Like, I mean, through multiple books, they have hated each other. They are always at each other's throats, and you kind of find out why, because Kingsley and Aspen had a like one night stand when they were really young, like they were teens, and she ended up getting pregnant. Now, they didn't exchange names and all of that kind of stuff, so she didn't know who the father really was, who he actually was. She kind of knew the party they were at, and like, I can't remember fully if she only had his first name, but She ends up thinking that her child died during childbirth. She was told that, and it's a very complicated setup, but she thought her baby died. But really, those people like actually took the baby, like her family and everything. She has a fucked up family. And they found out who Kingsley really was and sent him the baby to him. And so she never knew about her daughter, and Kingsley had assumed that she just abandoned her daughter. Now, it does get revealed in a previous book about that, and, you know, Aspen is devastated because she wasn't able to be a mom to her daughter and had no idea. And her daughter is really upset, you know, and kind of has these conflicted emotions about it. But Aspen really wants to be a part of her life and is trying to build that connection to her daughter. But Kingsley wants nothing like that to happen. He hates Aspen. He doesn't want her part of his daughter's life. And so they have a very contentious relationship. But they are so drawn to each other. Their relationship is kind of explosive, toxic, and they are very attracted to each other. So they also have kind of a hate banging situation happening, and they decide to kind of like hook up secretly, but you know, it gets more complicated, and as feelings come into play, what I really loved was Aspen kind of put a ban on the sex between them to see if there could be something more than just the lust of their relationship. And so I really loved this. It was very big on the enemies to lovers, but these two were very hot together. This is definitely a spicy read. I think I gave it like 4 chilies, I think. So it was it's like my favorite in that series. And I think I could definitely go in and read this by itself, but one of the previous books is about her daughter and her relationship, but definitely a very good one. Okay, another new one that I read is actually from Immortals After Dark by Kresley Cole, and this is Wicked Deeds on a Winter's Night. And this was one of my favorites. I don't think I fully gave it 5 stars, but I think it was like a 4.5. And I think pretty much this whole series is you could be able to do enemies to lovers, because that's who these people are. You know, they're finding their fated mates. This is, you know, the Immortals After Dark series. I am actually doing a read along this year. So if you are interested, make sure you check it out. You can jump in anytime, read whichever books you want to do, because I'm reading it for the entire year to catch up, to read the whole series. But in this one, this is between Bowen and Mariquetta. And the reason this is enemies to lovers is that Bowen is a lichen. He is a werewolf, and his kind have always hated witches. And Mariquetta is a witch, obviously, and he really hates them because something happened with his, I think, father or grandfather, if I remember, that a witch completely fucked over their family and ruined their lives and all of that. So he really hates witches. And so Bowen has a really complicated story because he had found his mate. They have fated mates in this series, and he had found his fated mate, but she died before he could fully like meet with her or be with her. And so he's been living kind of like a half existence. He's really depressed. He is living life without his fated mate. And so he actually participated in this competition that's brought up in multiple books. And the prize was actually to get this key to go back in time. And he wanted to win that so he could go back in time to save his fated mate. Now things go wrong, and he definitely is not going to have that happen for him. That does go in a previous book, but it does get mentioned in this one. And he kind of has some run-ins with the witch Mariquetta. Now, Mariquetta is a witch. She's on her way to be transitioning to immortal, but she's still human. So she's very, you know, vulnerable to things. And so she is also in this competition. And they kind of have some pretty bad run-ins during this. And he actually traps her underground, where it's like, I think there was succubi or whatever, I can't remember, but it was a bad situation, especially because she's human and she gets stuck down there. And so she really is hating on him after that. He does end up going back for her and everything, but so they have a definitely like bad start. Bowen makes a lot of mistakes, And he doesn't understand because he's so sexually attracted to her and drawn to her. And he doesn't understand why, because he shouldn't be. It's only for like his fated mate. And so he starts to think, is this his fated mate reincarnated? Is that what's going on? And so, you know, he's trying to figure that out. And they are kind of forced to travel together for a bit. And things go crazy from there. So I will say I loved Mariquetta. She is like so powerful. She is like one of the most powerful witches, but she hasn't reached her full power yet. And she doesn't really know how to control her powers. So it was a very interesting dynamic between them. Eventually, when they do get, and it's very spicy when they get it on, it's hot. But like he kind of doesn't want her to be a witch, and that's who she is. She's going to be a witch. So they kind of butt heads for like the first half of this book. They have a definite push and pull. And I really loved this one. This one had so many interesting characters. I love the introduction of the witches. You know, the lore just keeps building in each of these books. And so I loved this one. I loved Bowen. I was really excited for his romance. So, and there is a big twist at the end and surprises that made it even more exciting. So I really, really loved that one. Okay, so another one that I have for a Mafia one for you. There's lots of Mafia, you know, enemies to lovers. But one of the OGs that I read, which was the first series that I read of Mafia, is Bound by Hatred. And that says it all right there in the title. I mean, they fucking hate each other. So this is a big enemies to lovers. This is between Mateo and Gianna. And Gianna, I will warn you, can get really frustrating in this book. But I really loved Mateo so much. So like I dealt with her frustrations, her frustrating behavior, because she is definitely a prickly heroine, and she is a daughter to a mafia don. You know, she's part of the mafia. She is expected to be in arranged marriage. Her sister Aria already got married to Luca. And Mateo is Luca's brother and like right-hand man. And so Mateo sees Gianna at a wedding and he's like, damn, she's hot. Like, I want her. But they definitely have like a hate to love enemies vibe going on. It is a little bit more one-sided coming from Gianna than Mateo, because Mateo is like this kind of feral sunshine. He's definitely psycho. He does some crazy stuff. He is in the mafia. But, you know, Gianna does not want to marry him. She refuses. She's fighting tooth and nail, but it's out of her hands. She has to marry him. So what she ends up doing is making her sister help, which is fucked up. But she goes on the run and she decides to just go live her best life, partying and having a good time. And Mateo's like, F that. You're promised to me. You're gonna be my wife. And so he hunts her down. And so Gianna's actions have some pretty big implications, because she puts the people that she's with in danger just by doing that. And Mateo is like livid that she did that. So they definitely have a very contentious relationship. Like, they fight each other so much. Like, Gianna is constantly fighting Mateo and not wanting to be with him. Even though they have like this insane sexual chemistry, she still tries to fight it. He's infuriated with her behavior. So it's just that constant push and pull between them as well. So this one you could definitely read as a standalone. You don't have to read Aria's one first, but you know, this series, I loved it when I first started. Obviously, I moved on to bigger and better like mafia romances, and I'm not a huge fan of Cora Reilly's most recent stuff. Actually, I haven't read her most recent stuff, but the last couple books in the Kimura Chronicles weren't my fave. But I do think this is a good one if, like, say you don't read a ton of Mafia 2 and you want an introduction to it. Like, I think this is a good time. So definitely check this one out. Okay, so then I want to bring up a fanfic. Now, obviously most of my fanfics are usually enemies to lovers, because I primarily read Hermione, and so that's Draco and Hermione. But I'm going to bring up the fanfic that is the most hype fanfic that everybody loves. I honestly don't know if it's available on Archive of Our Own anymore, because it is being turned into an actual published work now. But I am talking about, of course, Manacled. So this is like my all-time favorite fanfic. This is so good. It's so worth that hype. So unfortunately I'm bringing it up, and I'm not even sure if you can get it, but eventually that book will come out and I think it'll be just as great. I do have another Hermione that was another one of my favorites, but I just want to bring up Manacled just to show some more love for it, because it definitely got me more into fanfic, and I need to read more. I definitely need to read more, but it's just hard with all the arcs and ALCs and different things I'm doing to get to fanfic. But, you know, obviously this is a true enemies to lovers, because Draco and Hermione are enemies. Draco was a Death Eater. He was fighting for Voldemort. He is his like right-hand man. He's very high up in Voldemort's army. In Manacled, you have this where Harry, it's like what kind of happened if Harry lost. So in this, Harry lost the war. He's dead. Most of Hermione's friends are dead, and she has been captured and held, you know, by the Death Eaters, by Voldemort's people, and kind of in a secluded, very like dark place where finally she's kind of being brought out because they are trying to kind of repopulate for the wizarding community. So they're trying to pair up. This is kind of like a Handmaid's Tale, but mixed with Harry Potter type of thing. And so she is a good match to do that. And so she actually gets offered up to be with Draco and his wife. And she doesn't really remember anything because of what happened to her, and her like also blocking out all those memories. She doesn't remember a lot of stuff. And Voldemort also wants her because he wants Draco to try and get into her brain, to get into her memories, because there are people that are still trying to fight from the Order, and he wants to know if he has like a spy or enemies or anything like that. So she is forced to move in with Draco and his wife, and she is basically assaulted by Draco because she has to have sex to get pregnant for Draco and his wife. So it is very dark. There's a lot of dark content in this, but there is also another part to this where we get flashbacks of what happened during the war, and so much more that went on between Draco and Hermione, and we get a deeper look into those characters. So that's all I'm going to say about it. It is an amazing, amazing fanfic. It is so good. I love Draco so much. Draco has always been like had this special place in my heart, even with like the old books and the movies and stuff. And so I just love seeing my dark Draco and Hermione together. So I definitely recommend this, and it was one of my favorites. Okay, so another one that I have is actually a recent release that I wanted to bring up because I just loved it so much. And that is Hidden Roots by Clio Evans. Oh, okay, I just almost spilled my wine all over the place, so sorry for that weird cut. It was scary because it was right next to my book. So anyways, that's a nice behind the scenes of what's going on over here. Okay, so anyways, it was Hidden Roots by Clio Evans, and I love this book so much. It was my favorite in the series. This is a small town you know, romantic suspense, but it is very erotica romance. There's a lot of spice in these books. So the third book is about a specific couple that, like, you've seen these two characters through the previous two books, basically at each other's throats, always fighting, always hating on each other, and we didn't really know what the case was. So this is between Hunter and Emma. And Hunter, so this is one of my favorite types of enemies to lovers. And that is when it's enemies to lovers, but secretly the hero is smitten and kind of acting like an ass to push the, you know, it's like on purpose, but he's obsessed with the heroine. So that's what we got going on here, because Hunter and Emma had a pretty rocky start. Emma had moved to town to be with her best friend that was from the previous book, the first book in the series. And she kind of moved to town. And when she moved to town, she ended up like running out of gas in the middle of the night on the side of the road. And she's like freaking out in this small town. And a guy pulls over to help her. And she kind of got her taser out because this is romantic suspense. The previous book, there was a serial killer situation, so smart on her to be careful. But she accidentally tases Hunter, who is just trying to help her. So from that point on, they were always arguing, not wanting to be around each other, hating each other. And so, you know, she thought he hated her after that whole incident, but really he was obsessed with her. And it's been a couple, I think like 2-3 years of this. And their friends are trying to like force them together to work on a project together so that maybe they can get over their hatred for each other. But also what ends up happening is Emma has a lot of secrets that she's kind of been hiding, even from her best friends. And it ends up being an ex-husband that shows up. She comes from a family with a lot of money. She's cut off from her family, doesn't talk to her father anymore. And she had been forced into this marriage for her dad. And, you know, just wasn't a great marriage. It was kind of just a horrible situation for her. And now this ex has just shown up on her doorstep when like Hunter was in the house, and he's trying to say he wants her back. Oh, also at the same time telling her dad died. But now he wants her back and they should be married. And so it's very suspicious. She's just like, no, F no. So she pretends like Hunter's her boyfriend so that he doesn't think they can get back together. Hunter takes it a step further and says, no, this is my fiance. And this guy basically stays in town trying to force the situation of them being together, or at least her signing her dad's company over to him. And so they're kind of forced to keep this fake relationship going. Of course, this fake relationship forces them to acknowledge their sexual connection. They both have like kinky tastes. And so they finally start hooking up. And it is spicy. There is a lot of kinks in this. One of my favorites was there was pegging in this, which was amazing. But I just really love the hero and how obsessed he was with this heroine and how sweet he was. And so under that grumpy, like, I hate you attitude, he was really in love with her. So I really loved this one. So this one, I think I wrote some of the stuff for spice, just so you're aware. There's toys, sex toys, voyeurism, exhibitionism, anal, breeding, some rimming, role play, which was really fun, shibari, and then of course the pegging. Now I will bring up trigger warnings here because it's one of my trigger warnings that is for me, and that is animal injury, and it's like on purpose by the stalking side characters, because this is a romantic suspense, so the suspense element will kick in when she has some kind of stalker going on. So that was my big trigger warning. So I just want to bring that up here, but I absolutely loved it. It was my favorite in the series. The suspense element is a little over the top, but I just love these two together so much that like I didn't care. So I had given that one 5 stars. Okay, so my final book is another Rina Kent. And this is not my favorite in the series, not the worst in the series, but you know, I'm not a huge fan of amnesia trope, and that is in this, but I still think a lot of people really love this one, and this is like a true real enemies to lovers. So I wanted to bring that up, and that is God of War. This is the final book in the Legacy of God series, so I do recommend. Unfortunately, I'm giving this as a recommendation, but I'm telling you, you need to read all the books. It does take place a couple years, like kind of after the events of all the other books mostly. So I do think it could have been better kicking off like a separate series, but that's just my opinion. But we have Eli, King, and Ava. And basically what happened was Ava was obsessed with Eli growing up. She was infatuated, basically kind of threw herself at him, and he dissed her. He was like older than her group of friends, so it was kind of creepy for her to be like obsessed with him and him to be involved. Now Eli does come off with a lot of Rina Kent heroes, kind of psychopath. He's, you know, very much like his father, you know, who is one of my favorites, Aiden King. But what ends up happening in this is Ava has like serious mental issues. She really struggles. She has to take medication and go to therapy and all that kind of stuff. But she'll like go off her medication and just self-sabotage. And she just constantly does this to herself. Her and Eli have basically been fucking with each other for years, doing like, you know, pranks on each other, messing with each other. Just, they hate each other. really she hates him so bad, but it's really because she was in love with him and he dissed her. But anyways, what ends up happening is she is out partying one night, is driving, and then she wakes up in the hospital. And then really it's like, I think a couple years later, and she has like kind of like amnesia for certain those years. And she finds out that she's married to Eli, and she's like, there's no freaking way I would marry him. I hate him. And so she has to struggle to try and figure out what happened. Why did she marry him? Why would she marry her enemy? Why were they even together? Like, nobody else understood why she did it. And so she was pretty secretive about it. And so she's struggling to try and remember her past and like also try to figure out a way to live with him, because she's living with her enemy now. And so there's a lot of like reveals that happen later in the book and secrecy of what happened. This does deal heavily with mental illness, so just be aware of that, because Ava really struggles with mental illness, and Eli has actually been watching over her for years. And you know, he married her to try and help her, and he has his reasons. So yeah, so they were definite enemies, and it took a while for her to see the other side of Eli. So definitely interesting one. Okay, so those were all my recs for enemies to lovers this time. I'm sure more videos to come. I know everybody loves a good enemies to lovers romance. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you like, give me a comment. Let me know your favorite enemies to lovers, if one of these you enjoyed, or if you were interested in reading one of these now. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys on the next one.